Happy Friday, everyone! Really excited to be here. Hyped to be here to discuss some Witcher Season 2 news. There's a lot of it, right, friends? And we got a new guest here on the channel. Super excited. Another Canadian.
Yep, that's me.
And let's talk a little bit about you.
All right. I'm pretty brand new to the whole YouTube game. I've been making a few videos basically since the start of the year, mostly focused on The Witcher, but I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, which is why my channel name is Laughin' Storm. You all can check that out if you're interested in that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's been a great time so far, and thanks so much for having me on stream.
Yeah, it's so the Witcher for everyone. We're all huge Witcher fans here, and Franz is also a Game of Thrones fan. So really awesome. First Canadian guest we've had on the channel. Like I said, I'm really excited about that. Tired of all those UK and American people just joking. But there really is a lot to talk about, Franz. We were actually going to set this up last week, and it's kind of this. We had some stuff happen here at my homestead that kind of pushed it back, but it's kind of really awesome that that we pushed it back because so much news came out, like a ton, like enough to do a couple of different videos. There's really so many awesome people here in chat. I know we have a couple different platforms we're streaming on. We're StreamYard again, really awesome. We're streaming on Facebook, Witcher Addicts, my Facebook page, Twitch, also Geek Chat 1 and my Facebook page. So everybody that is tuning in across all the platforms, really excited. I can see your questions here on StreamYard. So everything kind of gets melded together. So if you have questions and want to comment on stuff, yeah, really excited to have you here. But of course, I'm inviting you all to come to YouTube. So, but if you want to check out Francis' page, all the links to his channel, all that stuff is in the description of this video. So what do we really want to start off with? Should we start, like, I'm wearing a Tormund shirt right now. There's been a lot of great casting news. We can certainly talk about Mark Hamill and Vesemir, that possibility, but I think we'll save that for a little bit later because there's just a lot to that. But let's start off with, I think, some really good news. The Witcher Season 2 is attracting a lot of really talented actors and actresses. And we got the confirmation, even though it's a minor, I don't want to say a minor role because Nivellen is such a loved character. But Kristofer Hivju, who played Tormund Giantsbane, is going to be playing Nivellen in Season 2 in the very first episode. So really excited. 8 episodes are coming again in 2021. A little bit of a wait, but they're going to be jam-packed. Some of them were 64 minutes long. So we're getting another full 8 episodes. Kristofer Hivju as Nivellen. What do you think about that?
I think he's a great get for the show. He's going to be able to play that like effortless charm of a character that like Nivellen has going, which is kind of what makes him so lovable and so tragic as a character. And it makes you really understand like how that story could go that way, because like, without getting too spoilery, he's kind of like a twist on the Beauty and the Beast, and he's the Beast. So like, I think he's fantastic as a choice, personality-wise. His look for like the, untransformed version would work really well.
I mean, he has the big beard too, so you can kind of like, so he's kind of got the elements like physicality-wise.
Yes,
for Nivellen
exactly.
already.
Yeah, like when he transforms back, you're like, oh yeah, that's still the same guy. I was really surprised, and I said this 2 weeks ago or last week or last stream anyway, in the chat, that I would be surprised if they got him for this role because it's so little face time, right? Like he's going to be under makeup or CG or something, and he's going to be a one-off character too. So
and he's really well known since Game of Thrones. Like he came on in Game of Thrones Season 2, so that's a long time that we've known his face, and he's been like, not a main character, but a core character that made a big impact on people.
And a huge fan favorite, absolutely. So I think he's a perfect fit. I know a lot of people I've seen are complaining that like he didn't end up as a skeleton or something like that.
Crack-on Crate was another one, that really an older Crack-on Crate.
But like personality-wise, it's dead on. I think it works perfectly.
Well, let's go into the article. So for people that love Game of Thrones news, Watchers on the Wall was a great site to, kind of get your daily dose of news when there was new castings and stuff like that. But RedenianIntelligence.com, I have a link in the description of the video. We're going to be using all the articles from their site because they're the ones who are really getting pretty much all the news. So we're going to go straight to the article. And it has a description basically of, just what Franz was talking about, what is demanded of the role. So we're gonna go ahead and do that article. We're going to discuss this, and chat, we can discuss this a little bit more too. So let's do a screen cap here. I have 17 windows open, so hopefully all of you can see this. Let's get this here. Kristofer Hivju as Nivellen. So the cool thing here is they say Nigel, right? Similar letters. This is what they're saying. We have the Redenian Intelligence, I believe is Gravemaster, who wrote this article, one of their writers, says Nigel or Nivellen is described as charismatic, witty, and a funny man. He's from an aristocratic family and has been cursed for the crimes he has committed in the past. So you were speaking a little bit about his backstory and kind of how it fills in the world of The Witcher. This is a really important conversation as we start to build and understand what's really going on in the world of The Witcher, how dangerous it is. And then it also says the role is described, as you said, physically demanding with the requirement for great emotional range. So we got a funny picture of Kristofer Hivju there. Really, really exciting. I can go find, actually in my video yesterday, for those of you who checked it out, what would you describe him as? He's a beast. I don't know. He's like a bear, like bearish.
I think they describe him in the short story as having a bear's face and then having a blue suit, like a blue jacket or whatever. Very obviously riffing off of the Disney aesthetic version of the Beast. Here,
we'll do a Google. I'll do a Google search here. We can just go search him out here for a second. Here's a bunch of different. This is one of the best. This is one of my favorite ones.
So good.
Yeah, there's a great one. This is another great one here.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see the aesthetic that you were talking about. The blue jacket there with the chivalrous medieval looking outfit. But he's gonna be looking something like this. There was people who were saying that the CGI was questionable in season 1, but I'm sure they got loads more money to improve it in season 2. I'm not really knocking it too much. I didn't have that much of an issue with it, but he is, going to be a really interesting character. And like I said, Kristofer Hivju is a huge get for them. So I'm super excited that, they got him. And it's been speculated for a few weeks, right? The guy that's directing the episode, Steven, also directed some episodes of Punisher and Daredevil for those of you that like the Marvel Netflix stuff. So that's going to be really interesting to see how they start out the season, because wasn't really sure how they were going to do this timeline-wise. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that's going to be tricky because they're obviously, obvious to us, they're taking Ciri up to be trained, and I guess it's not too much of a spoiler if you're watching this stream, but a few other Witchers have been cast who are part of Geralt's school, the School of the Wolf. So they're actually going to be heading up to their home base, which is called Kaer Morhen, and Ciri's going to be taken care of up there, maybe trained up a little bit. We'll see how they handle that. And this Nivellen story is supposed to happen in the very first episode. So is that going to be like a tale on the road, or is Ciri going to just join him on the adventure because she's not part of the story when the short story takes place, or at least not a main part of Geralt's story yet?
Now we want to say there will always be changes adaptation wise when you're putting something on the screen. I mean,
absolutely.
As Game of Thrones fans, we knew that not absolutely everything could be adapted, even though we would want 12 seasons of Game of Thrones. Sure, I think that obviously we would love that, but it's going to be really interesting to kind of see how they do that. Me and you talked a little bit before the stream, and I see Stacy here from the Witcher Addicts. She says flashback, maybe Geralt telling the story, and that's something that we discussed, that maybe Geralt's telling the story to Ciri and kind of filling in the world for her, because we know that Geralt and Ciri have definitely lived different lives. You know, Ciri's life has been sheltered. You know, she's obviously the Lion Cub of Sintra. She's had a more safe life, but now she's exposed to the world, and this can kind of be like a great, especially if it's happening in the first episode, kind of a great first intro. Like, hey, like these are the kind of things that you can expect out here. You know, it's not just the Nilfgaardian army. There's monsters. There's people that are turned into monster-like beings like Nivellen. So it'll be really interesting to see how much of the episode, of course, it takes up, and you know, if they do a flashback or if they go there together, that would be an interesting change. Because if they have the conversation, then you know, Ciri can kind of absorb that for herself. So I'm not certain they would do that. I think it's probably going to be more of a flashback. Then that way they can do some more short story stuff, but I think, you know, they've really kind of spoken on how they don't want to confuse the timelines as much as they had with the first season.
I was going to bring that up, that like doing a flashback very first episode might be a bit gutsy when they specifically responded to criticisms of not wanting to confuse people with the timeline again with the new season. So if they did a flashback right off the bat, that would be pretty funny. But of course, just doing a flashback isn't necessarily confusing either, right? It could just
be, they can announce, like, I mean, if he's telling a story like a campfire story,
exactly,
kind of like when we had with the, you know, the Lord of the Rings quest they had with the Golden Dragon, one of my favorites. I just do want to address the question in chat before we move on here in a second. The original David Adams, you know, one of the best mods ever, him and Chrissy, first mods in the channel, has a question. It says, Shameka Angel Heart is wondering about the future of the book club, FYI. Well, next Friday, I'll actually be having Aziz back on, and we're going to be doing The Edge of the World. So that's going to be something that, you know, we both discussed. We're really excited about that. We discussed doing A Grain of Truth. That's still something that we'll be doing in the future, considering with all the news. But I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that one, because there is a character that we might see in season 2 for that too. So it'll be really interesting how they go there with that. But we're going to be starting the book club next Friday again. So a little bit of a wait for that. Sorry about that, people. I had some stuff going on at home. The book club will be back on next Friday. Izzy from History of Westeros will be joining us again. And friends, you're going to be coming on at some point too. But we want to do the season 2 stuff because there was so much of it first, and we thought that would be a little bit more exciting for today. So okay, let's kind of get to a conclusion here. How do you think it's going to go down? I think it'll be a flashback. I think that's probably how Geralt will be telling the story, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually go see Nivellen together.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the idea that it'll probably be a flashback, just because it works as a really good like example to her of like how appearances can be deceiving. And I mean, not to get like too into it, but in the short story, Geralt doesn't exactly have a great time in that story. So if they threw Ciri in there, it could work to its benefit, but it also kind of seems like a cautionary tale about witchering, to me, at least.
Yeah. Because I mean, one of the things that I think they did so well in season 1, and that people were a little bit worried about, is how are they going to translate the great mythology and the world building that Sapkowski has done with, you know, within his books. And that was kind of some of the criticism that happened with Game of Thrones. Like you're losing some of the, you know, the world when you enter a page and you read it for yourself and experience that. How is that going to translate across? So that's a great point, I think, friends, and how that will translate into season 2, because we don't know how many short stories we're getting. And then we know that Blood of Elves is going to be kind of the main sort of overarching plot that's going to be with season 1. And then, you know, as the seasons go, kind of be like a book per season, maybe a little bit more. But it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how they fit those short stories, especially with Nivellen being a minor character. I'm actually surprised he's even showing up in season 2.
Yeah. I'm really glad he is, because he is one of my favorite stories, like the whole Nivellen story. And, you know, they cut a lot from the first episode with all the Snow White parallels. So it'll be nice to see some other Disney princess parallels make it in, now that maybe they're a little more confident. They're the #1 show in the world, so maybe they don't feel as intimidated by Disney.
And one thing too, I think that is really exciting, and me and you discussed this, and me and Aziz discussed this, is the sale of the books. So people are like, before season 2 now, it's like people understand what happened in Game of Thrones. People got into the books super, super late, right? And now people are reading all the books before season 2, and they're like, oh, I really want, why wasn't this short story included, or why wasn't this included? So they are going to kind of sprinkle some of these stories in, and maybe they, you know, do one a season or something like that, because they don't necessarily need to say like, hey, this happened. Then they can kind of, you know, because, you know, some of the stuff that happens in Season of Storms later on it is, you know, can kind of be filtered in there. But really exciting. Kristofer Hivju, first thing to talk about today here on the stream. I know all of you in chat are super excited about it. Tormund, one of the surviving characters in Game of Thrones. I thought he was going to be a goner during, you know, the Great War, but he survived. One of my favorite characters. And as they gave him more screen time, you know, we saw more tender moments with him and Jon Snow, and he really kind of got to have his voice. What a great actor, Kristofer Hivju. He can be funny, he can be serious. We saw that range in Game of Thrones, and I think that that's something, and part of the reason why he got the role of Nivellen. So super excited about that.
One thing I saw brought up in chat, and some people might have missed it, is there was a big casting dump today that was done by Netflix, and another member of the Nivellen story has also been cast, Verena. So she has been cast, fairly unknown actress as far as I can tell, and that's Agnes Bjorn. I wasn't able to find too much about her, but yeah, so
yeah, let's actually, I'm on the Redenian Intelligence page that shows a picture of her and kind of a little bit of a, because each little section has a little bio. Let's go to that page and let's kind of talk about the casting depth, and we can kind of just go person by person and talk a little bit about the characters that were cast, because there was like 7 to 9 characters that were cast, and some of them are major characters that have like major roles in this series. Let's do a little shout out. I see some really awesome people here in chat today. And Ghost, love having you here. Just chill out a little bit. We're trying to have a little fun. It's Friday. Amy Collins, Russell, Rick Hoppy, the original David Adams, Chrissy of Oldstone. We got the awesome moderator team here. Thank you for handling that. Dragonheart613, Kate Bertinsky. I saw more Elite in there earlier. Rick, I'm drinking some of your coffee right now. Thank you for that. To Dawson, I see so many awesome people from the Witcher Addicts and Facebook that are watching right now. So thanks for that. Really appreciate that. John Webster Film, who does awesome work on YouTube. Shelby, Jean Sprouse, Stacy, all sorts of awesome people. Patrick Tubbs, Anna Iglesias. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Just want to do a little shout out there for all the people that are coming to hang out with us here on Friday. So let's go. I'm going to screen cap this so everybody can kind of see for themselves. Screen share. I got so many different windows open. Oh my God. So here we go. So this is the big casting dump that you were talked about. First discovered on Twitter, the Netflix official Twitter. I just did, you know, kind of the casting names or whatever. But then, you know, man, honestly, Redenian Intelligence is fantastic. They're so on the ball with all of this. I love it.
Right.
And like I said, you can find the link to their website in the description of this video. So Netflix confirms the Witcher's new cast. We got 3 new Witcher's cast. We're going to talk about that, and then some other complementary characters, including this one. Let's start off with Francesca. Let's just go in order here. Misia Simpson. So Francesca is a powerful elven sorceress described as the most beautiful woman in the world. Francesca is tall, intelligent, powerful, and protective towards her child. In the book, she ends up taking a leadership role amongst the elves and is one of the continent's most prominent political players. So she's been a model, and they said they're really excited to see where she goes. Let's talk a little bit about her, because there is a lot more that starts to happen politically with the mages, Nilfgaard, and all of that. Without spoiling too much, let's talk about this character.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk too much about Francesca without getting into spoilers. Because pretty much everything she does has some major consequences. So you really need to keep an eye on what she's doing and who she's interacting with and what's going on. But one of the big things that's going to happen, a lot of people are kind of divided on the last episode of the first season, in which the Battle of Sodden Hill with all the sorcerers against Nilfgaard happened, and a bunch of them died there, and there are going to be some really heavy repercussions from that. I mean, Nilfgaard's not going to be happy with the North, but they're especially not going to be happy with the College of Sorcerers, or what do they call them again in the show?
Good question. Remember how my brain was misfiring before we had the stream today? I couldn't even remember. Oh my god, I couldn't even remember Zerael. But yeah, I think wasn't it the Brotherhood of Sorcerers.
The Brotherhood.
Or the council. I think it was the Brotherhood.
Stacy's saying Brotherhood as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. Wow, I actually guessed that right. Like I said, guys, I'm a little slow today. I literally just had my coffee. But yeah, no, it's really interesting that it's Brotherhood, and it's mainly there are. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between the Brotherhood and the actual women with Tisea, because there is the school at Aretuza as well. So you're talking about these different factions. Let's explain that.
So the Brotherhood is kind of like the overall political entity of the sorcerers, and the idea of this group of sorcerers is that they specifically want to influence politics. They kind of have a paternal role over the politics, very similar to if people are familiar with the Grand Maester conspiracy.
We saw Stregobor and Istrid. We saw that specifically with the little bit of the seed planted with the Yennefer plot line, right?
That's right. So every king has access to, in the Northern Kingdoms at least, has access to a sorcerer who acts as an advisor. But they're not just advisors. They're also kind of steering the direction of that kingdom's policies in order to keep stability going. And with the numbers of the sorcerers down, there's going to be some issues with that. And Nilfgaard, being an aggressor, is also going to add more fuel to the fire. And let's just say the leaders of Nilfgaard are very crafty in how they can kind of exploit that. And we're going to be seeing more of that as season 2 goes on.
We see a little bit of the Game of Thrones being played as the season goes on. We were chatting before the stream and talking about how, the short stories is more of, kind of an intro into the lives of Yennefer and Geralt and Ciri, kind of their starting points, kind of almost like an origin story, so to speak. And that's kind of what we got with season 1. But once you start getting into Blood of Elves and all the other books, we start to get more and more like this. As we saw with Game of Thrones, the stakes get higher and higher with each season. That's something that they both really have in common. And we really kind of start to see that this factionary game being played.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I think, why season 2 will be like, and when the critics actually start to pay attention, they will say, okay, well, this is I don't want to say the new Game of Thrones, because that's already been thrown out there, but they'll understand why they need to be a little bit more patient as far as understanding the story goes.
But yeah, like Francesca's a very, very big part of this whole unfolding. And so it's kind of interesting that she's only being cast now, that she didn't appear at all before, but it's understandable. She's also an elf, which we didn't see a lot of full elves in the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, which is going to apparently change in season 2 if they pursue the same sort of direction. And this kind of ties into another character who hasn't appeared yet and should appear this season. I don't know if we want to get into that. Do you know who I'm talking about here?
Yeah, let's just drop it. Why not?
It's with Philippa, right? Because
this was something that was criticized in season 1 as well. Like the people that are hardcore fans like me and you, they're like, well, why didn't this happen? And with 8 episodes, they have to make strategic choices and not. I mean, it was already a pretty big overload as trying to kind of get the grasp of what's going on. So I think they were smart to save it. And I think I know where you're going to go with it too, to kind of introduce, like, that's the kind of season 2 stuff. And I don't want to compare it to what happened with Stannis and Melisandre in season 2 of Game of Thrones, but that's kind of how it feels with me with introduction into this new plot line and kind of understanding how things go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. We're going to see a lot of development on the Nilfgaardian side, they were kind of criticized for just being the evil big bads with the ugly armor. And apparently all of that's going to change. And the storyline is actually pretty good at both humanizing Nilfgaard, but also making them seem like even more of a threat than they ever have been, which is going to be very interesting. I'm gonna be very excited to see how they handle it, because some of the stuff that happens is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because Fringilla really got a lot of spotlight in season 1. She got a larger role, and that was something that I found really interesting too. So
yeah, because like Philippa is another player, right? Like Philippa and
big time
Francesca are real players. And the interesting thing is Philippa, she's involved with a few other, like very specifically involved with a few other main characters and soon to be main characters, right? So she interacts with Geralt and Dandelion, obviously, and she also interacts with one who has been very specifically not mentioned in the casting announcements so far, which is Dijkstra.
One of my favorites,
right? But that's what I'm going with. And there were some rumors around him being cast, but apparently, according to Redenian Intelligence, at least, that has probably fallen through. And that was
it was Michael McNaughton, right? And he was in Outlander, and he also played one of the dwarves in The Hobbit.
It was Graham McTavish, I think.
McTavish, yeah, I'm getting the last name mixed up.
Yeah, Graham McTavish.
But he was one of the dwarves in one of the best dwarf characters. He was the dwarf with the red hair. I believe. Yes. I can't remember his name.
I think so. Let me see here.
Either way, let's just go to. I think he's not mentioned in this article. Anyways, he's going to be a character. He's huge. He's a spy.
Yes,
and a really interesting character, because there's funny dialogue, there's crass dialogue with him, and he's someone that has multiple layers to him, and super intelligent character. Really excited to see that.
Yeah, like early Game of Thrones Littlefinger level of intelligence and scheming.
You said early, a little bit of a trash talk there.
A little bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I've seen it come up like so much, and do we want to keep teasing chat about it? The one big like casting rumor that's been going around.
Vesemir. Well, let's just go with Vesemir now.
Yeah, I think we should address it a little bit. Yeah, that's right. He was Dwalin, the big bald dwarf, Graham McTavish, at least.
Yeah, and he had the bald spot, but he had like the red. He had the big beard and the braids and stuff. Yeah, he was awesome. So yeah, let's kind of talk. Let's just we'll get into the other castings, but let's just throw it in there now. I think there's an article on this too on Redenian Intelligence, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll get into the other witches and stuff next. But so the role of Vesemir was offered to Mads Mikkelsen, Michael Keaton, and Mark Hamill. That's insane. So the fact that they're offering 3 actors of that high of ilk is really interesting, first of all, because if we look at kind of, how Game of Thrones went with casting, there was obviously characters that you can 100% see as like, Ned Stark as Sean Bean, Charles Dance as Tywin Lannister. There's specific, like obviously Peter Dinklage as Tyrion. But there is people, and this has been long before the series started, that said Mark Hamill would be the perfect Vesemir. And I can't get it out of my head now, but the role has been offered to Mark Hamill, and Michael Keaton and Mads Mikkelsen didn't get the role, or they turned it down.
They passed, yeah.
So that's really interesting. Let's talk about that.
I think Michael Keaton was a good, interesting choice. I could see why you would want to go with him. He definitely brings the star power in that, like, really. And I love Mark Hamill. I love Mads Mikkelsen, but like Michael Keaton as a name is like gigantic. Like, you've got Mark Hamill as Luke, but otherwise people don't really know him. Michael Keaton is prolific. He's been Batman. He's been in, Birdman. He's been in so much else. And he passed, which I'm okay with personally. I think he would have done a great job with the show, but I preferred either Mads or Mark. And the interesting thing about Mads Mikkelsen, which again, he kills everything he's in, so I wouldn't have been upset with his casting. He's actually also the brother
Stregobor.
of Stregobor. Like Stregobor's actor is his older brother, which is pretty interesting. So that could be related to why he got offered the role. Not that he wouldn't have qualified for it anyway, but Mark Hamill, I mean, his performance is kind of underused in the Star Wars movies, if you were to ask me.
God.
He definitely laid the foundation for playing that kind of older mentor who's stern and learned from hardships over the years, and like that's Vesemir to a T.
The one main criticism I've been seeing, and we'll get that in a second, is this, and this is kind of, I think what people don't really understand is I think Mark Hamill would be the perfect casting because of his work with voice acting. And people are criticizing this and saying, oh, no, Mark Hamill is too emotional, whatever, you know what I mean? He can't pull off the role of the mentor of Geralt. And that's where I think they're completely wrong. And I think Mark Hamill is actually the strongest choice because like his range is like, it's unlimited power. If we're talking Palpatine, sorry. But I literally think that Mark Hamill is perfect for this role because, and I know a lot of people are down on the latest Star Wars movies. I get that. I didn't think they were, the best of all time or anything. But I think that's the reason why he's the best choice out of all of those actors because of his specific role with voice acting.
Yep. I'm a huge fan of all of his voice acting roles. Obviously the Joker, which like still blows my mind how anyone could even make that voice, let alone do it for like 15, 20 years. It's got to be over 20 years now. Maybe over 25. And he's retired the character like 3 or 4 times in that time. So, but like you can't beat that range. And Vesemir doesn't necessarily seem like someone who needs a ton of range, but we can know that Mark Hamill will hit it.
Now, without spoiling too much, like, we had me and Aziz had this discussion, and like we do see the, despite Geralt's hard exterior, that he's a very caring person, and we do see, and without spoiling too much, that same kind of connection with Ciri and Vesemir too. So like they all get softened up in a way when they have more human interaction, and we got to forget that these are people that were human before. So I think that that's a really kind of interesting concept that they're going to play with and kind of really distribute and show us throughout, the next few seasons. I want to talk a little bit about kind of how this Vesemir thing got started too. On Twitter, I remember the post. I'm not going to go digging towards it, but someone says, and when there's, kind of describing the role as Vesemir, and Mark Hamill replied to this person and says, oh yeah, that sounds like someone that I should play. Tell them to reach out to me. And then that literally happened. So we're not saying that it's going to happen, but I find it interesting that both Mads, who I think would be great, he's someone that is, very even keeled. Like he can just like keep a straight face and talk. Like he would be a great Vesemir, don't get me wrong. But I find it really interesting that both of those characters declined. I don't know if it was a money thing or it was a time thing. There's 8 episodes. Vesemir certainly has a bigger role, so that's something that, and the show is big. It's big. So I don't know if they, it's because they're filming and all of that, but I don't know. I just have a good gut feeling about the Mark Hamill thing. I just, and I really do think that him and Henry Cavill would just be absolutely bomb together. I was so on that. Let's see some comments from chat. There's been you want to read out some comments from chat there, France? We got a lot of Mark Hamill.
Yeah, there's a bunch here. Pretty much everybody's saying that they would love Mark Hamill, mentioning him in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Jack Frost. How people would be happy with any of those roles. Thanks for those. We got another Hannibal fan in. Oh,
great show.
Honestly, I think he's the, like, in my heart, Mads is the new Hannibal, even over the 90s Hannibal. Like, and some people
even over Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins,
absolutely.
Wow.
It's just like it's so perfect, especially after having read the Hannibal books. Like, just completely nails it. Yeah, and let's see here.
Let's actually, I'm going to go find the article while you check out chat, because there might be a little bit more information that we might be missing. Some context as to why. I found it. Let's go ahead.
Okay. I'm just trying to see any other stuff here.
Screen share here.
Hannibal. Mark Hamill has a role in Nightfall. Is that what you're referring to, Anna?
That was a little bit interesting. I've never seen the show, so I can't really talk to you what it's about. But this is but you know, this has kind of been discussed. And before The Witcher started, it was going around for a long time. So people were doing like their dream castings and stuff like that. You know, people are of course doing that for House of the Dragon. Game of Thrones is just going to come out apparently next year. But like, let's see if we can find any more information. So this is where they do say Daniel Richtman. He says, fun fact: the role of Vesemir was offered to Michael Keaton and Mads Mikkelsen. They both passed. And there's a lot of filming. Like they're filming right now, which is really exciting. February 14th to August 14th. So that's a lot of time. That's like 150 days.
And they started early. Apparently, they started before the 14th. So that's kind of unheard of with all of the news that we always get about delays for movies and TV shows. So that's great. It's a good sign. And
they said they want to make sure they get this right. So I just find it really interesting. There's not it just says not very many people were taking this seriously. Because you know it was tossed to him on Twitter, and then Mark is he's got a great sense of humor, and he replies to a lot of people. He's known for great fan interaction, so people were like, this is just a big joke, dream casting, whatever. It's never going to happen. But it looks like it was offered to him. It doesn't turn out like there's any more news on it, but I'm sure I find it interesting that there is this big casting jump, and they haven't announced the role of Vesemir. So maybe what they do is they get a little bit of footage, and then they kind of announce it. This is something that could maybe be kept under wraps because Vesemir is like a top fan favorite character. Yeah, that would be an amazing way to build up hype for the season, is just to have the actor that they cast, like in some, even if it's just test footage, like how a lot of people didn't really believe in Henry Cavill as Geralt. And then they saw the test footage and a lot more people came on board. Some people still weren't convinced. Some of the stuff, like the wig, didn't look quite right, but as soon as they saw him, that sealed it for a ton of people and got them more excited for the show overall. And I'm one of those people. It's funny that you mentioned the wig thing too, because there was huge backlash about it, kind of like the Sonic animation thing. And one thing that has been really noticeable is Lauren Hissridge, the showrunner, has been in Reddits and talking to people, and they've been taking the criticism and feedback. Like they're changing the Nilfgaardian armor and other stuff like that. So they're taking like the hardcore fans, they're going in there and having conversations with them. And that's why I find the whole Mark Hamill thing completely interesting. Like we don't know how much the exact budget is of The Witcher, but they're only in their second season. And if they really, really like want to commit to this being like their big Game of Thrones on Netflix, and they have talked about it kind of being their like franchise fantasy show on Netflix, then this is like just really encouraging in general. So yeah, absolutely. So not too much more in the Mads Mikkelsen stuff. I saw a couple of interesting questions there, friends. Let's get into them, because there is a casting for Ithleen from the Edge, and Stacy says, isn't Ithleen from the Edge of the World short story? Ithleen, does she appear in person in that short story? I can't actually remember. I might be getting some wires crossed here. What I remember her from is like excerpts where they're talking about the prophecy. Yeah, and we when Ciri is shouting when she has her first encounter with Cahir, that's part of the prophecy that she tells, the one of the White Frost. Yeah, that's the big one, right? And it's going to be she's a prophet. She is elvish. She's very, very powerful, apparently, because everyone takes her word as gospel, essentially. Stacy's asking if she was like a goddess. I don't believe so.
I think she was just a prophet, a fortune teller kind of person, and she made this grand prophecy that talks about Ciri and the Sword of Destiny, and all of that stuff kind of comes out of there. And yeah, like it kind of sets the stage for this entire saga, because it's not like it's about Geralt, but as you were saying before the stream, by the end of it, it's not really about Geralt anymore, because he's not the child of destiny. He's not the sword of destiny. He's just part of it.
It's I keep on bringing up Game of Thrones in the end too. It's like kind of like the prophecy stuff with Jon Snow.
Right.
Like there is some truth to it. There is some stuff you kind of gotta look more deeply at. And we saw that from Geralt's perspective, kind of like being the denier of destiny, not believing in it. There is this kind of push and pull with that. So I don't want to spoil too much about that. But they are looking at that. She is going to be in season 2. That's going to happen.
Yeah. And that one, I think, is a prime candidate for being shown in like a vision or a flashback of some sort. Because like, I don't know how they would really bring her forward. Because she's like an ancient character from what I remember.
And we do have the elves and we have the dryads, and that can be kind of a little bit confusing for people. Like, yes. How are they going to make that distinction in season 2? Because Blood of Elves story. I mean, the book is called Blood of Elves, so there's obviously elves in it, and there's the dryads. So there is going to be, I think, a little bit more of an explanation in season 2 as far as all of that stuff is concerned, and people will start to understand a little bit more. Yeah. The elder blood, that whole part of the story is really, really important.
Yeah, they're going to have to bring up the elder blood. It's going to be really interesting. I know I'm probably going to end up making a few videos about it, either right before or right after the season, about like, what the heck is the conjunction of the spheres? What are they talking about when like they're saying humans came from another world entirely, and that like it's not even the elves who really were there first. It's actually the gnomes and then the dwarves, and like all of this stuff going on. I really like, there's so much there that needs explaining, and season 2 is going to be the real start of it.
Well, you know what's really interesting about that too, friends, is when we have the banquet with everyone and all the fighting and stuff, and we see Pavetta and Dooney and all of that, where they get married. If you look at the floor, all the symbols on the floor, that is the conjunction of spheres.
Exactly.
And then we see Pavetta puke, and Ciri is the child of those two people. We know that Pavetta, when we even hear Ciri's grandmother, right, talk about how she believed that the elder blood wasn't in their family anymore because all those special ancient powers had passed her, right? She was a soldier. Right. She didn't have any of these magical powers. So
yeah, it skipped her generation, I think is how she put it. And so she thought, oh, well, Pavetta doesn't have it because I don't have it.
And that's something that is, I don't want to talk about, like there is a lot more to the Pavetta Dooney stuff. That is a huge, I don't want to talk too much about that, but I don't know if anybody caught it, but it said that they died in a shipwreck, and there's storm and all that. So there's definitely going to be more stuff uncovered about that. And I think, with Ciri kind of coming forward, her story coming forward, and with, her family being gone, she's going to learn more about that.
Yeah.
I see an awesome, we got Urtach Altanaz in the chat. Really, really awesome. Nice to see you. We got some more people. Kelly, Ellie. Who else do we have in here? I saw some new people.
Going crazy. One sec.
Yeah, no worries. Just doing some shout outs here. Oh, we have a doggy barking in the background. The Bandersnatch. We see Vlad. I see Vlad in chat. Nice to see you. So that's something that's going to be really interesting. Kind of see it. Like we talked a little bit about the flashback with Nivellen. Maybe this is kind of a little more of a flashback season where we have a couple more of those with Ithleen as well. So France might be right on the money there with that, and kind of how they pull that off. So, go ahead.
It might be, I know you wanted to circle it back after we were talking about Vesemir. We got a little sidetracked to talk about the other Witchers.
Yeah, that's also mentioned in chat.
Coming back up in there.
Yeah,
let's slided my man bun. There it is. It's pathetic.
my hair is getting long too. I actually had a cut, and then Jeez. So I'm going to go get the article there. There was an if anybody has questions about the Coen, Eskel, and all of that, the new Witchers that we're going to be seeing, and of course Lambert, my personal favorite, we'll get the casting update here. A lot of really, I mean, the Eskel one, he looks exactly like Eskel in the game.
It's so good.
It's so good. So yeah, let's go to another screen share. We're going to talk about some more Witchers, and this is something that's really exciting too, because we haven't heard Kaer Morhen mentioned a lot, but there is a lot of stuff that happens there in Blood of Elves. So we're gonna kind of discuss that, and we'll go to the article. Everybody excited? And by the way, everyone, if you're enjoying this, toss a like and a subscribe to your YouTubers. France does great videos on his channel. Like I said, all of his socials are in the description of the video. And of course, if you're enjoying this and you want to see more Witcher content, make sure you subscribe to both channels, like this video, and all of that. Yeah. So let's just share this, because we're going to get to the other article on Redenian Intelligence. So yeah, the Witchers of Kaer Morhen. Really, really interesting stuff happening here. Paul Bullion and Yasin Atur were the ones that were confirmed just like 4 or 5 days ago. And then they added, I don't know how to pronounce this, Thu Rasmussen. I hope is going to be playing Eskel. I hope I'm not pronouncing that. It could be Thui, but I think Thu. I'll just say that for now. They're all cast. There's 3 Witchers that are going to be introduced. Well, I guess we can add Vesemir as well, so that's another one, 4. But they're going to play a prominent role in season 2. Let's which one do you want to start off with? Which is your favorite?
So my favorite is actually going to be Eskel, I think. And that's because I really like that he's the one out of the 3 of them who really kind of, at least in the books, really humanizes Geralt the most. So I don't think this will be spoilery, but they were trained in the same class, so to speak. And so they've known each other for a very, 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 very long time. And they have this like brotherly relationship. And in the books, when they interact for the first time, when they bring Ciri up to Kaer Morhen, Geralt embraces Eskel. Like, he gives him a big old hug, and it's just like such a big moment for Geralt and for our understanding of Geralt, that like he's not this emotionless monster, right? Like no Witchers are. And it's something that a lot of people still have misconceptions of, even people who have read the books, even people who have played the games and everything like that. And it's just such a nice moment. And like, I know this sounds like nothing, that like it's just such a small thing, but it like has so much meaning. And if they can nail that, it's going to be really cool.
Well, one thing that has been talked about too is there's a big event that happens in Witcher 3, the Wild Hunt, where they all get together and they drink together, and it's the most hilarious and best side quest of all time in a game. For those of you who have played the Witcher 3, with Eskel and Lambert, they all drink together and they get dressed up in Yennefer's clothes, and they contact the Lodge of Sorceresses, and Yennefer catches them and like scolds them. It's really funny, but it's cool. You don't you get all these other connections, like these kind of other stories, but there is this kind of bond because they all got transformed. Like, they were kids. They went through this incredibly stressful process. And you talked about the connection of Eskel, and like he's the one that humanizes Geralt. They share more of a brotherly relationship. But Lambert is kind of the one where he's a little bit more salty. You know what I mean? He's kind of like, I never wanted this kind of thing. And he's a little bit more fiery. And he reminds me, it's funny because he reminds me a little bit more of Tormund. He's kind of like a drinker, and he likes to like get in fights and have sex, and he's like a little bit more like, kind of like he's a more forward of the Witchers. He kind of like lambasts in kind of these more carnal desires.
Yeah, he's the young pup, and like there's a reason so many people love Lambert, because he is brash and exciting and interesting, and it'll be nice to see that portrayed on screen, especially after like all the groundwork that the games did. And I know The show always claims that they don't like to take a lot of cues from the games, but we've already seen hints of it here and there. And I think doing the same with Lambert is going to be a good call.
So Lambert is the one on the left here. I'm just going back into the other article. It's Paul Bullion, and there was actually, if you go on Twitter and if you follow Paul Bullion on Twitter, there he's like practicing sword fighting, and he looks really good with it. So I'm not sure. I don't know too much about this guy, but it seems like he already might have some of that experience. And it says he's in Peaky Blinders in the Bastard Executioner. So if you like Peaky Blinders, he's in that. He has a minor role in Dennis Villeneuve's Dune. So really, really interesting. I mean, he's just got like, he's a good looking guy. You know, he looks like he can be a Lambert. Really, really excited for that. And then we
like Kristofer Hivju a little bit.
He does, kind of, right?
And I don't think it's just the ginger thing. It's also like his expression and like the way he's holding like everything together looks very much like a younger Kristofer Hivju, or maybe not even that younger, that much younger.
So each of them will be in 3 episodes for season 2, apparently. Like we said, there's 8 episodes, so that's pretty significant. Significant arc. And there's him in the Bastard Executioner. Like I said, go follow him on Twitter. There's a really, really awesome video of they have a picture. I didn't even notice this on the side. Here we go. Let's go on Twitter.
The limericks.
Oh, there's a great one. I'm wondering how you think they'll go with the exact description of him. I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting to see how they adapt him looks wise. So there's Lambert. He's the one who's a little bit more brash. Like I said, he's a really interesting character. And then there's Coen. He's a really interesting one as well. He's a little bit different. Let's talk about him, because he's not from the same school of the Wolf as Eskel and also Lambert.
So I think you're gonna have to handle this one a little more than I am, actually, because I have a bit of a confession. I'm working my way through the books at the moment. I've been a longtime game player of The Witchers, and I read the short stories back in the day, but I'm still making my way through the series along with everybody in here. So that's kind of where my exposure to the series is coming from.
Yeah, well, I don't want to spoil too much either, because I'm kind of in the middle, like where I did my Game of Thrones content, and also having fans of the books, where I know a lot of people are just getting into the books. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to spoil too much, but he's got some training with Ciri, which is going to be really interesting. That's not too much of a spoiler. We know that Ciri is going to be going with Geralt. She's got to train herself to survive in the world. So he's really, really, he's a really, really good fighter. I don't want to say as good as Geralt, because Geralt's considered the best Witcher fighter. Like, Geralt is just, he's super strong. He's a big guy. He has the big physicality, but he comes from a different, extra mutations. But he kind of and each Witcher kind of brings their own thing. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's alchemy, whether it's fighting, whether it's knowledge, each of them kind of have their own little quirks, like you would see with kind of any gang of fighters. But Coen is a really interesting character, and he kind of has a really special interest in training Ciri. He plays a really big role there. So I don't want to spoil too much, but really, really excited about the casting of these characters and how we're going to get to see more Witchers. It's not just Geralt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point about them being in 3 episodes out of 8, that's pretty huge. So some people have been asking, like, how big of a role are the Witchers really going to play in the new season? And at least when comparing to Sword of Destiny, the answer would be quite a lot more. Because a lot of people have it in their mind that there's a lot that goes on at Kaer Morhen in Sword of Destiny, but there really isn't all that much. It's like 1 chapter, and then they're kind of out of there. A lot happens while they're there, in terms of like a few pivotal moments, but we don't really see that much of what happens there in the books, at least not in this story. Maybe they flash back to it later on. So I think it's a good thing, because building that like family structure that Geralt has and going into that a little bit more, I think is going to be cool.
One thing it kind of points to as well, just to kind of finish on what you were talking about there, is we do see a more streamlined kind of like more points of view characters together, right? Like towards the end of Game of Thrones, we saw everyone come together at Winterfell. That's kind of like a little bit what happens with Kaer Morhen. A little bit, we do see Geralt and Ciri and Vesemir and other people kind of come together, and then we see more of what's happening with Nilfgaard, and then the Brotherhood of Sorcerers and the Lodge of Sorceresses, all of that. So that is kind of something that we need to look out for too. And 3 episodes is a lot. You know what I mean? That is, these were like cookie cutter 40-minute episodes. So now that we have more POV characters kind of getting together and more of a streamlined overarching plot with Bloody Elves, really, really interesting kind of see where they take it with more Witchers being introduced and just kind of their insights into the world too, because they have different experiences than Geralt. You know what I mean? Geralt he's a pretty old guy. Askel obviously is up there with Geralt. But some of these other guys, they have a little bit of a different experience. So it'll be kind of cool to kind of see their perspective of witchering and how they use their skills in the world. And that's kind of going to be, we'll have maybe some fireside chats and stuff like that, some more interaction with them in season 2, which will be really cool.
Do you think they're going to turn Cohen into a Wolf School Witcher?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No, I don't think they'll do that.
Okay. I hope not as well. Because
and that's a cool thing that they can do too. Then, friends, they can kind of talk a little bit about the School of the Viper and the School of the Griffin, maybe some of the differences,
and the School of the Cat. I'm trying to remember which ones were actually introduced in the games. I think it's School of the Bear and Viper. Were
the Viper is very prominent in number 2 because they have. Don't want to spoil it too much for those who are going to play the games, but they have a major character. He kind of goes rogue from his School of the Viper, and he's kind of doing some bad stuff.
But yeah, they definitely have to get into School of the Griffin and School of the Cat. Come on, it has to happen.
Makes me so excited too because we saw a little bit. Geralt kind of when he was talking in Temeria, he was like he's like, I'm offering you a deal. My Witcher of the School of the Wolf member here didn't finish his job, but I'm here to do it. And we didn't really get any interaction with that character other than he was, hunting the Striga and got pretty badly destroyed by it. So that'll be really interesting too, because these Witchers are a step up above the guy that got mangled by the Striga.
That's right.
So there's a few more castings here. We've been through quite a bit. I'm just going to screen cap this again. We're going to talk a little bit about Verena that we talked a little bit more before the stream. Here, 1 second. And everybody in chat, thank you so much for joining us here on Friday. I see that all of you are having fun. I love it. So yeah, we got some more female characters, and that's one thing I want to talk a little bit about too. Is there's so many great female characters, man. It's like strong female characters. Not that there wasn't in Game of Thrones, because there's a ton, but I think there's definitely more in The Witcher.
Yeah, and the showrunners have been doing a pretty good job of sanding down some of the rough edges when it comes to like the strong female characterization that Andrei Sapkowski approached it with. I mean, the show has a lot of women working on it. The showrunner's a woman, and they're kind of trying to remove some of the more like objectifying things. I know some people maybe like that about the Witcher books and games, but it's good for a wide audience, I think.
So let's go with the casting of Lydia. Lydia is a sorceress close to the mage Vilgefortz. You saw, for those of you who remember, he was the one who fought Kay here, and he kept on reconjuring his sword. Vilgefortz is a major character. She is described as follows: dark hair, almond eyes, bears the scars from an experiment gone wrong, secretary and assistant to the master, carries out a horrible deed, and she will appear in 2 episodes. So really interesting. She's going to have a little bit of an arc. This points to obviously, some of the very interesting stuff that we're going to be seeing with the sorcerers. This is one I'm super excited for the Kaer Morhen stuff, but I'm more interested to see how they pull off this stuff, because this is more like it's a pretty dark plot line. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
I think she really looks the part. I'm interested to see what sort of they talk about the scars here, so they're gonna have to do some interesting makeup work. There's no way they're not gonna show something off at some point from it, because it's a great kind of idea of who this person is and why she is the way that she is. And she communicates telepathically, which is kind of an interesting character like point to her. And yeah, like her role and Vilgefortz's role and their interactions together are very core to what happens going forward with the sorcerers and sorceresses.
Beautiful. Like, obviously,
Mhm.
you know, most of them are. But yeah, she's a really interesting character and definitely has quite the backstory. So without spoiling too much, really excited to see this.
Yes.
Verena, Agnes Bourne, cast as Verena. So me and you were talking a little bit about this before the stream. Verena is going to appear in episode 1 with the Nivellen storyline. We talked about how we're going to be getting more monsters and all of that. She kind of fits into there. She's it says right here that wool is required as a physical experience, and she will be involved in a fight scene. So that's something that I'm personally excited for. Beautiful, fragile, vulnerable on the outside. When threatened, she is capable of brutal violence. There's something animalistic about her. So, yeah, without spoiling too much, she plays a really interesting character.
Yes, there's a few layers to her, and I think the Redenian Intelligence already does such a good job of walking that line that, like, I don't know how much else to say for a lot of these characters, because any little toe over the line that they draw kind of could spoil things, or at least lead to something that some people would consider to be spoilers. And I really wish.
I honestly didn't think we're going to get the Nivellen stuff. So I'm just like,
yes,
super interested to see like how many short stories we're going to get, because they've obviously went deep in the tank to find the perfect actors and actresses for these roles. So really exciting. Yeah, Verena, she's she's vicious.
Yeah.
And then they say that's not all. We talked a little bit about Philippa Eilhart earlier, and also Dijkstra. There's I'm sure we're going to get more castings, but these are kind of just the first ones. It looks like they're getting all their production stuff out now. I expect that we're going to get more news on this. But it says the returning cast, we're obviously going to be getting Tissaia. Tom Canton is Phil Evandrel. He plays a bigger role. So we saw that was kind of one of the short stories that was a little more disappointing for me. That we'll be covering in the book club next week. So cool that we're getting that. Lily Cooper as Murda. Yarpin Zigrin. Talk a little bit about him.
So I kind of alluded to it in one of my recent videos that they might have softened him up a little bit in his introductory story, because in the books he's kind of he's not exactly a good guy.
He's a dick. He's a dick.
Yeah, and he goes all out by the end of it. But they softened him up for the show, and he's going to come back, and he's going to be a friendlier face, let's say, this time around. And I saw the tweet from, or maybe it was an Instagram story that Jeremy Crawford put out there, and he still has his big old beard, like, down to here kind of beard. And he was working out because there's going to be some combat involved, and he's getting into shape for that. And it said sweat is good for the beard, which is pretty perfect, because physicality and a beard is pretty much what you need to play a convincing dwarf. And
he was the lead dwarf, by the way, in the Golden Dragon Lord of the Rings quest, as I like to say.
Yes, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah. So he's a great character, and he's, without spoiling too much, like I said, he's got a bigger role to play, and his dialogue is hilarious.
Yes.
Hilarious. So he's some great inclusion there that we're getting him back. Lars Mikkelsen, as we talked about earlier, who plays Stregobor, will be back. Fringilla, who apparently is going to have an even bigger role in season 2. Royce Pearson as Istrade. This is a I don't want to spoil too much with that one, but he plays a really interesting role, especially with Yennefer. We kind of saw their relationship go back and forth. That is, I'm wondering if they're going to adapt Shard of Ice in season 2
so.
in sort of Destiny.
We talked about it a little before stream, and like I think they have to at least touch on Shard of Ice. More short stories, which I think is great, because they should use as many of those as possible, because it really breaks up the stress of the overarching plot. And yeah, just seeing Istrid and Yennefer and Geralt all interact is going to be very fun for a lot of people, and not so fun for the characters. Let's just put it that way.
So we also get some news on the directors for season 2. Steven Surgic is going to get the first 2 episodes. He, for those of you that like the Umbrella Academy, and also Daredevil and the Marvel Netflix shows that aren't around anymore that might come back later on Disney Plus, he's got the first 2 episodes. Then we got Sarah O'Gorman. She has been with Cursed, 203 and 204. Ed Bazalgette, The Last Kingdom. He has 205 and 208. So he has one that's right in the middle of the season and the finale. So I find that really interesting, because Last Kingdom is a great show. For those of you who haven't watched it on Netflix. And Gita Patel. So really, really interesting choices for directors. 8 episodes again. I was hoping for a little bit more. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think 8 is enough?
I think if they pace it right, they can make 8 work. But if they do that, I don't know how we're going to get these 2 short stories in there, and also the entirety of Blood of Elves. I really don't think that can happen, or it'll come out very condensed. Like there, to be fair, there is a lot from the Blood of Elves books that can kind of be cut down or cut out. Quite a lot of it is a little bit repetitive, and could also just be condensed just due to the nature of television, being able to show something in, a magical vision montage thing, rather than going into it very in depth like the books do, could be something that happens. I'm not too worried. If the showrunners are confident that they can do what they want in 8 episodes, I think that we should look forward to that. Would I love 10 or 13 episodes even? Yes. But I'm okay with waiting, as long as they keep up the effort and care that they've put in so far.
So there's actually another great piece of news. I got some, they're not too spoilery, but just some, kind of set building. And we got a little preview of some of the Army of Elves that we're going to see. Let's go to that article. And once again, if you haven't checked out Redenian Intelligence, go give them a follow on Twitter, and go check out their website. They do amazing, amazing work. And they're kind of the hub for all of the casting news and all the stuff that's happening with The Witcher. So yeah, I highly recommend you go see them. Like I said, I have the link in the description of the video for their website. And Robert Indie Geek is in chat. Nice to see you, Robert. Oh my God, Robert Indie Geek. So Army of Elves is going to be filming in season 2. Really, really interesting. We're going to see the fearsome elven gorillas called what, friends?
A Scoia'tael, I think, is the correct way of pronouncing it.
Hell yeah.
And I think this particular spotting is going to be the Scoia'tael. There are other elven warriors other than just the Scoia'tael that come into play, but they're kind of the main ones we'll be seeing. I don't think I can reveal too much else about the other elf warriors. It might not even happen in season 2, to be honest, but Francesca's kind of involved with both of them, her being a very powerful elven sorceress herself. And they've given her some family members in the show, which is interesting. They announced this guy, her brother, Gary, which is definitely a code name. And then they also mention that she has a child. And I don't think either of those details are in the books, and it might hint at her being more of a political figure rather than a magical figure in the show. I hope that's not the case. I hope she's still like very involved in the sorcerers, but I could see them reading it the other way and her just being magical as an elf, but not part of the Lodge or the Brotherhood.
That makes it seem more like Yennefer's, like kind of a Yennefer connection almost, if you think about it, because we get the whole her whole plot line where she tries to save the baby and all of that, and obviously Yennefer, she waltzes in there and she's the most beautiful woman in the room, and we see kind of the chaotic effect from that from Jill and going to Nilfgaard. So
yes,
there's a similar kind of theme there, I want to say, with the Francesca stuff, because there's kind of a domino effect as to, I mean, there's consequences for every single action, of course, in life, right? But she makes some pretty big moves.
Yes,
let's say that. So we've got a lot of really awesome photos here. All of the, of course, casting stuff you can see kind of blurred out. They're not trying to spoil too much. But one thing that is really interesting too is that we're going to see some new locations, right? And this kind of plays into that. And really, really excited that we're going to be seeing Oxenfurt and Gorvellens and some other places as well in season 2. But overall, I think that the fact that they're expanding the story and giving us some of these more characters, this is so exciting because, I mean, it seems like we're going to be getting 7 seasons or something like that in total. That's their goal.
That's what they said, yeah.
But yeah, it looks like they're focusing in a lot of their budget. Like they got the Doctor, I believe it was the Doctor Strange costume designer. So pretty big name, and they've been working with the Witcher season 2 overall too, as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Cool.
So it says, as you can see here, there's different elves wearing different sets of armor. The gorilla-like nature of the Scoia'tael. You can kind of see this previewed here. I'm not sure if this is going to be exactly the same. They got the Braveheart face paint there. I'm sure they'll do their kind of own iteration of that. I wonder if they'll do it exactly like it's described in the books and the games. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there's a very big trend of showing the elves as like very naturalistic and kind of like wearing the leather and the earth tones and everything like that. I think these pictures are pretty representative of what we're gonna end up getting, especially the ones you're looking at right now. Yeah, where they've got like the green and the brown and the ruffles and the hair that's like a little bit teased out, but also braided. And
now that we're gonna get the Nilfgaardian armor change, their armor can be more Nilfgaardian, like you know what I mean, right. like it can seem more in tatters and more like, because obviously they don't have a bunch of steel and stuff. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Children of the Forest versus the First Men. Like they have different types of weaponry and they're in different places in the world and different amounts of resources.
Right. At different like tech levels even, right? Like the Dryads are probably, down at the bottom, and they just live in Brokilon, and Brokilon kind of provides for them, and their houses are like living trees and stuff. And then the elves are a little more advanced, and the dwarves are more mechanized, and the humans are around that same level. And then like Nilfgaard in particular is very like streamlined, very industrialized, lots of resource extraction and factories going on. So it is kind of weird that they have this weird like flowy, ripply armor when you would expect them to be like more
Roman.
Yeah, like either going the Roman direction or even like an orc direction, something very like
menacing,
functional and menacing and strong looking. That's the way I would go for, at least.
We are getting that in season 2, by the way. We did speak about this in a previous stream. Me and you talking a little bit about, or I think it might have been just me solo a couple weeks ago, talking about how they're going to do. They listen to the concerns of the armor, and it's better to fix it at season 2 instead of season 5. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So fixing it now, they can maybe explain a change. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but the upgrade, just. Like the black plate, this like the black and gold, and it really needs to stand out more because when the White Flame gets introduced and all of that, and Emperor of Nilfgaard, that's a huge plot point and stuff like that. So I think that it's good that they make the change now. But I mean, obviously, when you're getting a fantasy show like Game of Thrones or The Witcher, you got to invest in trying to, when you're adapting something, make it as great as the author would describe it in the books.
One interesting little point is in one of these Redenian Intelligence articles, there is a picture of a Nilfgaardian soldier, and it looks like he's still wearing the season 1 armor. So they might actually have a narrative reason for bringing it in rather than just like recasting the Nilfgaardian armor between seasons.
Yeah, it has a little emoji face over it. It was on Twitter, right? Because they were the first to be filming. Actually, let's go to that article. I don't think there's too much information in that article. Is there?
It's the now filming in Surrey Hills article, not anyone specific to Nilfgaardian armor. And it's just kind of like a little footnote. At least that's the one I'm seeing here.
Yeah, here, I'll bring it up. I'll screen share it for everyone. So this is Surrey Hill. We were talking about earlier if this was the location that Game of Thrones used. I know they are using one location that Game of Thrones used, and I don't know if this is a similar one. But here's where they're filming. I can't remember if this is the location or there's another one. But they are using a similar location. It says, in our last report, we revealed that the Nilfgaardian extras have been set to costume fittings in Arbor Field Studios. And it says the direct continuation of season 1's climactic battle of the Battle of Sodden. So really interesting. And then we go down here, and this is what you're talking about. This is their season 1 armor. It's not reflective of what the people have come to love in the games, especially The Witcher 3. You have more of that black plate, the more menacing look of their armor. But it's really interesting that this is still pictured there.
Yeah, well, if the thing is, like, right after the Battle of Sodden Hill, there are still going to be some Nilfgaardians around. Yen's got to get out of there. The other sorcerers have got to get out of there. So they're probably going to do some filming related to that just to get all of that squared away. And then Nilfgaard's, again, like, kind of been defeated. And so they're going to have to take a step back and reassess. And that could be a good time to have them reintroduced with their new armor.
Oh man, they said Frangilla was going to have a bigger role. I'm really interested to see as to why, like if she kind of has an impact on that, or Kay here specifically, because he's described as the Black Knight, right? So I actually got the link to the other article here. There's Kay here. And this is on January 29th, so just a few weeks back. It talks about, this is Lauren Histress, the showrunner. She says, I'm in London right now. This is where we're shooting season 2. It says 125 days, so 5.5 months. That's a lot. And she says, everything about The Witcher has been a real learning process. So she says, it's the beauty of being able to do this for the first time and come back, to be able to come back and do it again. Season 2 is exciting. It's a chance to look at the mistakes we've made and improve on those. It says, the Nilfgaardian armor will be totally different. So she made that promise. So we've yet to see that, but I'm sure, we're really early in filming. It's only been like in 2 weeks, not even, something like that.
Yeah. So. And they're doing they're saying they're doing 6 days of filming, and that seems like it could be a lot, but honestly, it could just be a few pickup scenes where they need a certain time of day, a certain amount of light in order to film what they're trying to do, which is just clean up season 1. So if they're doing 6 days of filming with this Nilfgaardian armor and then they introduce new stuff, I don't see a problem. I could see the new stuff coming in and making an impact for sure.
So yeah, is there anything we really missed as far as the articles go on Redenian Intelligence? I think we got through pretty much all of them, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit. There's one about the Leshy that's probably going to be included in season 2. That's gonna be exciting, but I'm curious about the context of how they'll do that. I kind of want to be surprised though, because there are a few places they could slot it in from Blood of Elves, but I'm not sure how else they could do it.
And this is one of the most favorite monsters in the games.
Yes.
As well. So
iconic.
So it's really interesting to see where they will go with that. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about like we have in our notes here. There's definitely going to be some more monsters. You want to kind of speak about that a little bit, and that how that will still be a big impact on the story.
Yeah, so there, like we were just talking about, there's going to be this Leshy, which is this forest spirit type of creature. And in the games, they have it like this giant, like antlered, skull-headed humanoid creature that like lives in the trees and does all of this stuff. It's very like pagan-esque, like very old school horror kind of creature.
Norse mythology-esque.
Yes. Yeah, like all of that sort of like Northern Germanic and all of that stuff kind of mixed in together. And I love that aesthetic. I find it horrifying and beautiful at the same time. And I think it really works. It's like very similar to some like even Native American creatures.
It's right here. I got it on screen for you.
Perfect. That's so good. And one of the others, this is actually related to casting, and it's not something I'm entirely sure what they're going to do with. I guess you could consider her a monster. They're casting for a character called, in the casting call at least, Vanessa Marie, who is described as a demon who like grants wishes and roams the land and has like, you know, sinister goals. So it's going to be like 3 or 4 big, like monstrous kind of characters that are going to pop up for sure, along with all of the political stuff that's going to be developing a lot. So if you were worried that they're not going to have any sort of monsters, any sort of like horror aesthetic stuff like they did with the Striga, I don't think we need to be worried about it.
There's definitely more stories like that all throughout the series, especially the Striga one, because there's a little bit of a curse there, and there's, you know, obviously, like we said, one thing that Sapkowski does, just like George R. R. Martin, that is great. He creates clear consequences to actions, and there's this ripple effect as to why things are the way they are. So really, really interesting to kind of see where they go, especially with the Leshen is more of an elemental, you know, it's more of an elemental vibe of the earth kind of thing going on. But then there's more of these, you know, there's vampires and spirits and stuff like that, and I think we're going to kind of see a few more of those. I don't know if we'll see the big introduction to the vampire character in this season. Probably not, unless it's a little bit later. But yeah, I see your face light up there. He's one of my favorite characters too.
Yeah, there's going to be a bit of an escalation. Let's put it that way. So everything that's kind of going to be appearing, I mean, we had the ultra powerful Jinn in the first season, but that kind of operated in a certain set of rules, right? Mm-hmm. There are going to be these super powerful beings that start appearing that have wills of their own. And having the Witcher and the sorcerers and Ciri and everyone go up against these type of characters is going to open the door for a lot of really horrifying stuff, a lot of really exciting stuff, a lot of, you know, they're going to have to be clever. They're going to have to be brave. And there's going to be probably a lot of tragedy along the way when it comes to this sort of thing.
One thing I want to say too is that Geralt and Ciri aren't invincible. You know what I mean? Like, so we saw what happened with the Striga, and I'm not saying the Striga is the worst monster, because it's not, but there's other things out there that are more powerful than a Striga that they encountered. Absolutely. So definitely going to be interesting to kind of see how they influx that into season 2. And I think we're going to see more and more of that as they start, you know, obviously the mythology is something that is such a great thing in Sapkowski's novels and in the games too. Just like, we're going to see a lot of that in season 2. How much more time do you have, Franz? Do you have a few more minutes to get to some questions, or did you have to take off?
If we, I could probably do about like 5 or so minutes of questions if we want to wrap it up around then.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're going to take or you can stay for a few questions, and then maybe I can stay a little bit longer.
Absolutely.
Because Franz is it's a little bit working and streaming right now. I don't know how I'd be able to do that. So let's all give Franz a hand for being able to work and stream at the same time. And of course,
is that too much?
Hopefully your work doesn't see this. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Franz's channel, The Laughing Storm, are you still going to keep the same name? You're kind of teasing that a little bit we were talking about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced, and if I were to make a name change, it would kind of be soon. I won't be too much of a departure, but it's something I'm muddling over. So yeah,
check out his channel.
We'll subscribe now so that if I do change the name, you don't forget later on.
So let's get some questions from the chat. Oh, Carla, nice to see you in chat. You're heading off now, and I'm saying hello. Moderators in chat will put that link in there for you. Let's get some questions. Let's get a few questions. Like I said, Franz has a few minutes left here, and if you guys have a question for Franz or me specifically, let's get some questions out there, and we'll discuss them. And thanks again, everybody, for joining on Friday. I know you could be doing more exciting things than hanging out here with me and Franz geek over The Witcher. But we're excited to have all of you here with us. And yeah.
I'm seeing a big conversation about paperbacks versus hardcovers. To address that briefly, I'm a paperback guy because I abuse my books, and I feel really bad when I do it to hardcovers.
I also saw audiobook fans there as well in the chat earlier.
Yep. Yeah, I'm one of those getting into it more recently.
So here's a question from the original David Adams. Franz, Q&A, what's the one thing you want to see in season 2 above all else?
I really want to see, and I know we're going to get it, but I really want to see the Ryan's storyline.
Ooh, we didn't even talk about him earlier.
Yep, there hasn't been too much news with him, and so it kind of works that this question comes in right now because it really throws a wrench in things for a lot of our major characters and brings certain characters together in a way that we wouldn't expect.
He has an alliance with Vilgefortz.
Ooh, that's getting a little. He's got a few alliances with a few people. Let's put it that way.
Playing the Game of Thrones
for sure. Well, he's not so much a player; he's a pawn, but he's a very powerful one, I guess is the way to say it. And his whole backstory and the way that unfolds is going to have a few twists and turns that I think people are going to love.
So he really interesting character. Like his storyline, without spoiling too much, with the sparrows, the stuff that happens in the sparrows in Game of Thrones, kind of a little bit like that, the High Sparrow and that kind of stuff. There is some fanaticism and stuff like that. It's a very interesting plot line. I see the question about the book club again, coming back next Friday. And for any of you who haven't checked out the Witcher Addicts on Facebook, amazing group. It's where I do a lot of my Witcher conversations. Go check it out there. I usually create an event on Geek Chat 1 and also the Witcher Addicts, usually a week before. But next Friday, Aziz from History of Westeros will be returning on the channel. We'll be doing another episode of the book club. So, yeah.
I saw a favorite characters one. This is going to be an interesting pick. I'm going to go with favorite minor character. And it's one we haven't seen in the show or the games, although we saw kind of an analog to her in the games. And it's actually Little Eye. That story legitimately made me cry when I read it. And it's I hope we see it at some point, either as a flashback or something else going forward in the show. But her character was fantastic.
Oh man, favorite character? That's so difficult. I love the fact that that Yarpen's getting a bigger role. Like I love his dialogue. Some of those kind of fringe characters that don't necessarily have like a main plot point, but they kind of get injected into the story. I'm super hyped for Nivellen now. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't think we were going to get that. That conversation is really interesting because it gives you the feels. You know what I mean? It shows that talks about consequences and actions and love and all sorts of things that we contemplate as humans. I saw lots of people say the Brux and the Beast, which is kind of a great allusion to the subverting of tropes with fairy tales that Sapkowski does. Yeah, I mean, that's a really difficult one. I have too many decisions that I love Lambert. I think Lambert's fantastic. So and his casting, he's really interesting. Coen as well. I like all the Witchers. All the Witchers are very interesting. So those are probably my favorite characters. I like the Witchers because of how they kind of have to adapt to the world, and they do have emotion, but they're suppressed, and then you kind of see it come out in certain different interactions. That's a really bad answer. I just named 7 characters. That's not a favorite character. I'm so sorry. Do you have to take off now, friends, or are you down for one more question?
Let's do one more. I'm having a good time. All
right. Shamanka, thanks for that question on the book club, by the way. And I can't remember, was it who asked the prince that wasn't promised? That was a great question. We get a couple more questions, and then Franz has to go, and I'll stick around for probably another 10 minutes after that or so. Questions.
I think the only other question I'm seeing is, are we annoyed for to wait for season 2? And honestly, not really. I'm obviously as hype as anybody for season 2 of the show. I'm one of the I feel like I'm a bit in the minority in terms of people who really appreciate the source material, but still really, really, really like the show quite a lot. And I want them to keep taking their time to do it. Netflix didn't know they were going to have a slam dunk until they released the first season, even though they hinted at it and renewed it for season 2 before it came out. So like everything from groundwork to casting to locations to everything had to be redone for season 2. So you can't really cram that in too much. And the only way they could really remedy it is by not dropping all the episodes at the same time. But I really like having all the episodes available all at once. I don't know about everyone else, but
that is one of the dilemmas. And I think one thing that you just described so perfectly, and I felt like we were so spoiled with Game of Thrones, is how much went to each part of the production values, the costumes, the dialogue, the right, like everything, right? And this is something that is, and Sapkowski isn't taking a role like in writing in the show or anything like that. He doesn't want any part of that, but he has said that he loves the adaptation. So I think you're right on point there with how things are going forward, and how, like the first season is a really good adaptation. I think like they stayed true to a lot of the values and the characters and the places and all of that. So I think that overall it's just really exciting and how great of a job they've done so far with The Witcher. France, thanks for another Canadian coming on the stream, man. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you. You want to kind of give a shout out to what you're doing, and then
yeah. So I do. They're kind of bi-weekly videos right now about The Witcher mostly right now, but I'm also going to be covering anything that comes out Game of Thrones related. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. I'm also a big fan of Lord of the Rings. They got that coming down the pipeline, and maybe I'll have time to read The Wheel of Time before that show comes out and then do some stuff like that. But same sort of vein as what Kyle's been up to and a few other guys like him. And so if you like that sort of stuff, give me a follow, and I hope you enjoy what I'm putting out there.
Subscribe to Franz's channel. Thanks for joining us, man, and look forward to having you back.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, man. Have fun at work. So it's just me for a few minutes here, everyone. Just the Zora hype with you get to hang in with my ugly mug. Yeah, I know I need to trim this beard. I was actually supposed to get a haircut, but my hairdresser had to move my appointment, so I would be looking a little bit more sharp if it wasn't for my appointment getting moved. But yeah, let's just chat for a couple minutes. Let's chat about content on the channel, because I took a little bit of a break. Some things were going on family-wise here at home. I don't want to speak too much about it, but had to kind of deal with that. I'm feeling a lot better physically and mentally after this. Things got handled. It's starting to get sunnier, and there's, obviously the winter is starting to wind down. So that becomes a little bit more easier as I'm able to get some vitamin D and some energy with me here in the lands of always winter. But lots of season 2 news. Of course, I'm always going to try to give you the best up-to-date news on the channel. I'm going to be doing the book club. Like, as I said earlier, we're getting back to that next week with Aziz. Well, what kind of Witcher content, or are you really interested in here? I really want to kind of discuss that with you while we have a few minutes here towards the end of the stream. And yeah, just kind of talk about that, where we're going with the channel. So talk about Witcher content. When Westworld comes out, by the way, I will be doing some Westworld content in the season. So however many episodes Westworld will be, I will do a review for each one of them. I'm going to be doing a stream as well. And I've talked to In Deep Geek, who's going to be covering that. And hopefully we can get together and kind of have some conversations. I know Robert will be covering it on his channel. So Westworld is something that is great. It's a weekly thing. It's one episode comes out a week, so I can kind of space out my content like I would with Game of Thrones. And for those of you that are in Westworld, I haven't really talked too much about it, but I will be doing Westworld content on the channel. So yeah, I know a lot of you didn't know about that. I haven't really talked about it, but when Westworld, I'm probably a week before I'll start to do some videos leading up to it. And there's a great trailer that just dropped. I'll be breaking that down at some point too. So Shamanka Angel Heart says, I'd love to construct the shamanic symbolism of Geralt as a warrior with someone. So character profile videos, kind of discussing the influence of where Sapkowski took kind of his influence for characters. That would be really interesting. By the way, these glasses are great for the blue light that comes into the screen. When you do so much video editing and stuff like that, your eyes get pretty crazy. So yeah, Westworld comes out really soon. So that is one thing that I'm doing. So character videos, okay. Witcher content. So thanks for that. And thanks again, Franz, for those of you who, like I said, thanks for coming on. The Laughing Storm. He's got the description in the video, in the description of my video. You'll see all of his socials and stuff like that. I know the new season of Westworld looks amazing. Also, if you're down for just Witcher, chatting with people, Witcher memes, fun conversations with other, Geek Chat 1, Witcher Addicts is a very, very similar group to the Witcher Addicts. I believe there's 5,000 members in the Witcher Addicts now. So if you're a fan of The Witcher, Shelby, Stacy, and a bunch of other people, Franz is a member of that group. I think a lot of people are. Chrissy, you might be a member of that, right? There's a lot of people from the live chats that have joined the Witcher Addicts as well. They're great. We're streaming there right now on Facebook, so that's pretty cool. I highly recommend you guys go check that out. So yeah, Witcher Addicts. I see Stacy has already put a link in the live chat there. Chrissy says, I'm super excited about Altered Carbon. Yeah, that drops on the 24th, Chrissy, on Netflix. And Anthony Mackie, who plays Falcon in Marvel, is going to be taking up the role of Takeshi. So that's going to be really cool. That's a great sci-fi show. Bestiaries. Oh, that's cool, Turbo. So I can like the news on the Leshy that we're going to be seeing in season 2, and maybe even Nivellen. I could kind of do that. I can do some more descriptive encyclopedia-esque, character profile-y videos. That'd be really fun. Hey, John, thanks for that. I really, really appreciate the kind words. He says, thanks for this, Kyle. I'm not as well versed as The Witcher as many of you guys, but I love listening and chatting with everyone. Yeah, that's the cool thing about The Witcher too, is for Game of Thrones, I got really late into the game. You know what I mean? I only started covering Game of Thrones season 5. I think that's when I started my YouTube channel. So, and after season 1 came out, I started to read the book. So I love the fact that everybody wants that new fantasy show and everybody's getting into the books, and everybody's just getting excited about it and getting into the world of The Witcher. So that's why I'm particularly really, really excited about The Witcher, is because we're starting off covering season 1 and we're right there from the beginning, and we can go, hopefully, I can continue to do this YouTube thing for a long time, health, fingers crossed, all of that. and we can go all the way until the end, and hopefully it gets like 7 or 8 seasons, and then we can have all these awesome discussions together. And it's only going to get bigger and better. Like the story just gets more and more and more intense, and the stakes get higher, just like Game of Thrones. So yeah. I see people shouting out Picard in chat. I haven't checked that out. I haven't had time for that yet. That's something that I'll probably pick up in my spare time and take a look at. But yeah, I haven't checked out Picard yet. It's not something that's it'll be something that I won't be covering on the channel. It's something that I enjoy in my spare time. It definitely, one thing that I have been thinking of was like kind of like what are the bread and butter videos, like the strengths of the kind of content that I produce on the channel. And I think, one thing for me is I want to create content that I enjoy on the channel, right? Like first and foremost, like I want to make sure that I'm having fun creating videos. If I'm putting my time and energy into it, editing videos and writing scripts and all this stuff like that, I want to make sure I'm having fun. That's the first thing. Secondly, I want to make sure that you're enjoying it too. You know what I mean? If I'm going to be saying something, I want to make sure that it's fun for you. So that's something that I always consider. And I think, the strength of the channel and where we've gotten so far, it'll be 4 years in April that we've had a YouTube channel here at Azor Hype. I think, where we really kind of built the channel was those theory videos. Like after season 6 of Game of Thrones, we had all that time leading up into the next season, and I will be able to create theory and speculation videos and discuss all the stuff with you and kind of get everybody hyped up. And that's kind of where we came up with the name Azor Hype. You know what I mean? I would get super excited, and then that's kind of how all this came to be. So that's kind of what I feel like I can do with The Witcher too. You know what I mean? We're only going to be getting the second season, and a lot of people haven't read the books, and I kind of feel like we can get some really fun discussions going on characters and kingdoms and story arcs and stuff like that. I will be doing some more spoilery videos. Of course, I'll put spoilers in the title. I'm going to be doing that just to make sure that anybody that doesn't want to be spoiled for that type of stuff. But there are people who have read the books and have played the games who can have some more in-depth discussions where we're not towing the line and worried about spoiling things for people. So I will have kind of a nice balance of spoilery videos and then videos that are kind of more open where we're not spoiling stuff for people that, are a little bit more new to the series. I see a lot of people talk. I heard a lot of people talk about Lock and Key. I haven't watched that yet. Mandolin, nice to see you in chat. I saw you pop up earlier. I didn't get to give you a shout out. Thanks for joining today. Yeah, a lot of people are saying they either really like Lock and Key or they're disappointed by it. It's probably not something that, it's so hard to get into so many shows because I have an addictive personality where I want to talk about it. You know what I mean? So for me, sometimes I have to stay away from some shows. Otherwise, it'll get me distracted from what I'm on. And I just feel like right now I don't want to take on watching too many more new shows. Yeah, like I said, Westworld is definitely something that I'm committing to. I think the third season looks amazing, and they got great actors and actresses, a great story. Aaron Paul is going to be in it. The theme for season 3 looks really exciting. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're going with the channel. Like I said, I really was looking at what I can do, and we don't know, we haven't had a lot of Game of Thrones stuff. We don't know when Winds of Winter is coming out, and House of the Dragon, there hasn't been a lot about that. But of course, when that kind of stuff comes out, I'll talk about it. But I thought it would be cool to kind of take some of the same formula and some of the success we've had with the channel with Game of Thrones video and kind of do speculation Witcher videos, kind of do the same format, but with The Witcher. So that's kind of where I'm thinking of going right now. Like I said, when Westworld comes out, I'll do that. But lots of Witcher videos are on the way, and I'm going to try to have some other awesome content creators come on the channel. Like I said, Aziz is coming back on next week. We're going to do another book club. I know a lot of people have really loved that, and I personally love that. So the fact that I get to go back and read chapters and be a geek and talk about with all of you is super exciting to me. John Webster says, I'm discovering this very problem, Kyle. Streaming limits number of the shows of time you have to tackle. Yeah, it's like it's a time commitment thing too. You know what I mean? It's like how much time do you take up watching these shows and getting invested in it and all of that. And it's an exciting time though. Like people say the golden age of television has already passed with Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and stuff over, but there's so many new shows on the way, and there's great new shows like The Witcher and like Westworld that are still around. There's Lord of the Rings and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, the future is really exciting for and Disney Plus Marvel stuff. Falcon, The Mandalorian season 2 comes out this fall. Super excited about that. So WandaVision, definitely going to cover that. Definitely going to cover Falcon and Winter Soldier, the Disney Plus Marvel stuff. So those will be some kind of shows that we can cover in the meantime until we get our other shows back like The Witcher and Game of Thrones. But I want to thank everyone for being here today. Really, really, really appreciate it. I'm going to have a new streaming schedule. I'm definitely going to have 2 streams a week. One's definitely going to be every Friday, but I'm toying with the idea of kind of doing 2-3 streams a week mixed in with my videos. So I don't know how many of you would be up for that, but me and Helen are doing a stream on Sunday, talking with the Mandalorian season 2, some of the Star Wars Disney Plus stuff. That'll be at, I believe, 5 p.m. on Sunday, 4 or 5 p.m. on Sunday. I can't remember what time I set it up for, but you'll see a link on the channel. Me and Helen are going to be discussing the Mandalorian season 2 and some of the other Star Wars stuff, where they go next. Really excited for that. Next week, got another stream with Z's, like I said, from History of Westeros. We're starting up the book club again. And if there's a bunch of more Witcher news, I'll definitely do another stream. But I'm thinking of expanding the streaming schedule. Kind of got away from that for a little while, but I thought about doing streams Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, like 3 times a week or something like that. And I thought that would be kind of cool. But yeah, let me know in the comment section what you think, what you would like to see on the channel. Of course, after, I want to hear your thoughts. I love having discussions with all of you. And like I said, I'm really excited to be back doing full-time videos again. So yeah, be on the lookout for lots of Witcher videos, Westworld stuff, and more streams in the future. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next video. Hype and love.